Okay folks, back on the 2005 Duramax Chevrolet. We got it running good. A lot of the wiring situation taken care of, and now we've got to do something on the differential, so I went and purchased this differential. Now just about everyone on my found was at a minimum of $400. Now this a half ton, won't fit in this truck. It's got to be a GT4, which is a 373 gear. The GT5 was a 411. So I found this particular front, and I guess the closest one to me that was available at $400 was I think about, I don't know, 50 miles away, 40 something miles, 50 miles away. And I had bought from that company before and I like them, but I found this one way closer, right gear, right size, everything. Come out of a 2000, I think a 2002 model, but anyway, 150,000 miles, which that's going to be average on what you find nowadays. But the problem was this thing had been hit on this side, and when it did that, you see these are slotted, so it actually moved the whole rear end over a little bit, and when it did, it broke the mount off. So I actually seen a lot of these advertised on the computer with broken housings. So I think about any time you get in a wreck, the way that these are built, the housings are notorious for breaking on them. And the way that they're built, the torque they can take, but the side-to-side load they can't. So we are going to fix this thing, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to do it. Okay folks, we've got our JB welded on, and most importantly, we've got it welded exactly where it is supposed to be. So that's a start. Now we got to work with it from there. Okay, so while this is drying, I found a bolt that fits through pretty snug. That's a 9/16. So this is hardening up already. Actually feeling really good. And made a plate to bolt here. So we're going to drill this and bolt it down, clean it up, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we got the plate on. We've got it ground, and if you haven't figured out yet what my plans are, I haven't finished up my anti-gravity device yet, so I'm going to have to weld something to this bolt to hold it here, and then once this bolt is in place, I'm going to weld it from here to here, and then I'm probably going to take a bracket and actually bring off the bracket and tack it to one of these bolts. You can always cut it back loose, it's not a big deal. Our plans is to hold this bolt basically in midair exactly where we want it. Then we're going to knock this back off, even if we got to cut it off or whatever, not a big deal. And then we're going to make one out of steel, and we're going to press this bushing in it, and then we can slide it back on this bolt with a steel ring, and then we can build brackets from there to hold that in where it needs to be. Now, buying this thing, of course, I was opening up a can of worms, but most of y'all already know I like to fish. Alright folks, used a 1-inch solid bar. You can't use too heavy a material. You can use too light, but you can't use too heavy. So we've got it welded on our plate. Our plate's going to stay bolted there. We're not going to take it off because them holes are oblong, and I don't want that to move at all. So we're going to leave it there. As you can see, we've got it welded into the head of the bolt. I put a washer on the bolt, so that way that'll give us a distance this way. And actually, because it pushed this rear end over, luckily we didn't break the bottom mount, but this was actually slid over to the edge. And when it slid over the edge, that's what ended up breaking it. So I pressed this back to the center where it's supposed to be. So I think that's going to work, except I'm going to put one more on it. And I think I'll just unbolt this, bolt a tab here, and then weld a piece from the tab up to here. And that way, that'll help ensure me that this is not going to move at all. But out here would be fine. I think with that 8 or 10 inches overhang, it's not going to hurt a thing on 1-inch solid bar. Good thing about doing this kind of stuff is it don't matter what you find. If it's too big, too small, whatever, just make sure you do it heavier than you need. If I'd have ran 3/8 rod right here, this thing would have been bouncing around, and when I moved it, and you don't want that. You want it to be there, and just use the heaviest stuff you got. It don't matter if it's square, round, rusty, just any kind of scrap. I'll save this, and we'll call this the Locator 2000, and GM part number, we'll come up with some number. But anyway, no, the last tool I made would have been the piece to straighten out the shaft on the Allison transmission, and I couldn't name it before I done the job because I wasn't sure if it was a, you know, an Allison 1000 stud straightener or an Allison 1000 stud breaker, but it turned out to be a straightener, thank goodness. Okay folks, we've got a piece on here and bolted tight, welded. So now our plan is to try to knock this out from under it and see how well this stays where it needs to be. I didn't clean or grind any of that, just for that purpose. So let's get this cleaned up, son. It don't take much. It don't take much when the TV weld don't stick good, but that's okay. It done exactly what we needed it to do. All right, so we're cleaned off. We know that's where it goes. Let's go press this the rest of the way out and make us a new steel bushing that this is going to press back into. Okay, so found this. Somebody's welded a little tab on it, not sure what for, but I think what we'll do is we'll cut that tab off. And this is it's almost, well, it's over half. It's less than 3/4, probably 5/8 thick. It's got a shoulder on it, but we can turn that off, turn it back surface. Looks like about 5/8 is all we have for contact area inside this. So it just goes to the center. And then I guess you're able to move it back and forth a little bit. And that's one of the reasons them holes are watered on that bracket. I don't know why, but I don't know. Anyway, so my point is I'm going to bore this out to press this in, and I'm also going to cut this lip off, clean it up. We'll cut this off first with the grinder, but that will work. The only difference, we'll have one set screw hole in there that we don't need, but don't really matter. This is steel. That was my important part. You have to watch, because when you're finding junk stuff like this to build parts like this out of, it's easy to find a piece of cast iron. You don't want to use cast iron when you can be welding brackets to it and stuff like that, because it will, you know, even if you get the weld on there and all, it'll under stress break off. So we want something good and strong. So this is good steel for sure, so we're going to get it taken care of. And if you're wondering about it, you can do a spark test with a grinder. Okay folks, we've got our bushing, or whatever you want to call it, made. And you know, one thing about it is besides the ID, you know, you want to get it what you need it. The rest of it really don't matter, because it's going to be welding to it anyway. It's where it needs to be, exactly where it needs to be. As you can see, you know, that's good and solid, so we're there. So now all we've got to do, we'll start with a plate that goes here, 2 holes drilled with nuts on them that come up, and that'll be our start. That'll get us in place up here. We'll do the same thing here, but we're just going to drill it once and put 1 bolt here, but we're going to come off of here and come to the side of this rib here and drill and bolt. Now we don't want this stuff to protrude out a long ways, because I don't know clearance issues. You know, you don't want to build something that you can't fit in there. So we're going to try to keep an eye on that. And I don't have another 4-wheel drive here besides that truck. And you know, it's busted up pretty bad, but we still should be able to see what we need to see from it. Okay, I got some more cleaning up here to do, but we're making our first plate that bolts on. It's going to weld onto our tab up here for our piece, but it's going to bolt on in 3 spots, here, here, and through here. And I don't know what we're going to use yet, 1/4-20s maybe, or 5/16, but we'll see. But anyway, that's our shape we want. I'm going to make it out of 1/4 inch, and it's got a little bit of a bend in it, so we're going to do some hammering on it to make it conform to the exactly to the transfer case. We'll clean this up really well, and then we will bend it around up here to where we can weld it on. And that'll be the start of it anyway, and that'll get us in place where we want to be, and then we'll just keep working at it. Okay, here's what we've got. Got our plate. I cleaned it up here because I don't want any, if there's any foreign objects or anything there, it's going to cause problems. Hopefully you can see that. I got you on a tripod, so Hope you can see. But anyway, so right through here is a slight bend that comes up and goes that way. So we've got to account for that in our plate. So we want to do this mark where this bend's at. If you can see, it rocks. So we want this to fit up against there good and flat, and then we'll bend this piece to go around here. So I'm going to go see if I can put a good hammering on this thing in my big vise with a 3-pound sledge and get a little bit of a bend in it. Okay, so here's our slight bend. Maybe you can see it. I haven't tried it yet. So. Oh, wonderful. Man, that's nice. Now what we got to do is mark our bend and start bending around the top of this, where we want to start our bend at. And we know we need to come around it and probably go in a real good way. So let's see what this looks like. Boy, that's luck. Sometimes I get so lucky. Alright, so now I'm going to mark it for my holes. I'm going to drill these on the drill press, and then I'll come back and drill through that aluminum case. Okay folks, we've gotten one plate bolted on. Here's what we've got. And I'll show you, we wrapped that around and I fitted it. It took a few tries, but I fitted it good to it. But one thing you want to make sure of when you bolt this down, that this is not pushed in so far that it pushes against it. And as you can see, that's how close it is. It's that close, but without pushing on it. So it's not an issue to get a weld in there. And we'll get that welded good. And then we'll start on the strap for the other side. And I'm not sure how I'm going to do it yet, but we'll figure it out. It'll work out in the long run one way or the other. Alright, hard to wrap your head around some of this stuff if you're trying to design it beforehand on paper. It's going to look different when it's done. You can't picture it on paper the way that it should be. That's just the way it is. And that's why there's design changes so much, why stuff changes. And we don't want to do a design change. We want to do this and be done with it. And now if the permits wasn't holding up my time machine, I'd be able to tell you whether this worked or not. Alright, here's the other one designed. Might have to take some off, for clearance issues, but I want to leave as much as I can for strength, and then go from there. So that's what we're going to do next. Cut this out, grind it, bolt it, 2 places. Okay folks, got this side bent around, bolted on. We've got it bent all the way up to the other one. We're going to weld it. Got a little trimming to do right here on this side to make it even, and then we're going to trim a little bit on this case, which I don't want that part on there, and that's the reason I've done this. That is the way this is made right here. Or the way this is broke out right here. This is just asking for a new crack, so we're just going to cut it even, smooth it off, smooth the case off. And then we got one more thing that I'm going to do. I'm not going to run any of the bolts over to them bolts. I've decided, because your maximum force is torque on this. Side to side is only if you crash. We don't plan on crashing ever. If we do, I'm sure we'll tear up other stuff anyway, so it don't matter. So since it's torque, what we're going to do is run 2 plates, one on each side off of here, weld them into our plate we made, and run them right down this rib, and we'll drill them in 2 spots and put 2 bolts in here, and that will help hold this entire piece, the torque on it. And I think that'll be it. I don't think we'll need anything else to make this into what we're looking for, which is a good unit that won't give us any trouble. We're not doing this to go full welding or nothing like that, because it'll probably rarely ever see anything like that, or never with me. But we're just trying to take something that wasn't usable and make it usable. Alright folks, we've got these two pieces on, smashed in, and now we're going to go ahead and weld it. And we've got to weld that in, and we'll get it finished up. Okay folks, it's welded and done. Now we're going to take this bar off, and everything should stay where it needs to stay at. I'm sure it will. Finished up all the welding. Not going to do much more cleanup. I might end up pressure washing it, I don't know. But this is complete and done. It got a little hot, but it didn't hurt the rubber, so we're good. I'm not going to knock it out. I'm not going to change it, just leave it there. But we got 7 bolts in it, so I don't think it's going to go anywhere. We'll try it and see how it does. So I think everything's going to clear. I don't think there's going to be anything in the way. But if there is, you know, we can trim or whatever we got to do. But there you go. That's $300 that I saved by doing that instead of paying for one. All right, folks. Appreciate everybody watching. And until next time, bye.